We've all beaten a Souls boss, I hope, and then went, well, that was cool, but crap, that could have been a lot better. So today we're talking bosses that had so much potential, but let us down in the end. Starting with number 10, Lich Dragon Fortisax. Fortisax is a bombastic beast swooping through the air deftly with a gargantuan red lightning blade. His enemies tremble in fear as he dispatches hordes in one fell swoop. Tales and legends will boast of his Oh, he's dead. So the problem with Lichy Boy is clear. He dies way too fast. The footage that you're seeing is me playing an NG+, meaning he would have died about 30% faster in New Game. It's strange for a boss placed so far into the late game to be so under-leveled, but it happens. It just usually doesn't happen with bosses that had so much time and effort put into them, not only visually and musically, but by building whole new locations for this fight. And the player has to spend so much time to get there. Every attack feels like a world-ending moment, and then it just ends. I will say I have another mild complaint with the lightning that sticks to you. I applaud FromSoft for trying new mechanics here and there, and it seems fun in theory, but it comes off as more of an annoyance than engaging. It's a pretty simple fix too, just raises HP by maybe double, and the fight is instantly more engaging, and not a first-time victory on every single effort. Number 9, Executioner's Chariot. This is another one that has all of the pieces in place and manages to fumble with one goofy mistake. Let's be clear, Lich Dragon Fortisax is a way better boss, but that's what makes him less disappointing. Executioner's Chariot is still a good boss though, don't get me wrong. It's actually a great boss until you fight the boss. That sounds weird, but it's true. If they had done anything to flesh out the final enemy of the encounter, I'd consider it as a great puzzle boss, but that's all it does right. The puzzle, the actual fight part is, well, it's like fighting a standard enemy and totally deflates the situation. I suppose they wanted the final challenge to be somewhat simple because the entire gauntlet of the puzzle, getting the rider off the horse, and going through the boss runback are all part of it. But if the final foe is a total pushover horse that only knows like 2 attacks, it makes the climax of the entire encounter underwhelming to say the least. Or disappointing. Yeah, that's the video. Number 8, Aldrich, Devourer of Gods. You're not going to have a lot of opportunities to revisit one of the most iconic boss arenas of all time, and if you do, you better knock it out of the park. Did FromSoft manage to with Aldrich, Devourer of Gods? Kind of. But I call him Aldbitch because I don't really think so. I think everything surrounding the fight is top-notch, especially Gwendolyn being half devoured in this sludge-filled arena, exemplifying just how far the pristine kingdom has fallen. But the mechanics? I suppose it's interesting that we finally get a fully fleshed out Gwendolyn battle. Pun intended, with Aldrich puppeteering him while eating him. All of it's cool in theory, but the actual mechanics of the fight can be mildly frustrating at times to say the least. The worst offender is definitely the tracking long arrow attack in phase 2, but as it's a little bit rare, it can be excused somewhat. Perhaps this is simply my bias for melee combat, but this constant need to teleport, the AoE explosion every time he does, the constant spamming of magic from ranged, it all becomes mildly frustrating over time. I appreciate that they took a step away from just trying to do an ONS clone and went in a totally new direction. I just wish it landed better for me. If I were to fix this fight, I would take away the arrow attack in phase 2, as well as the particle spam. I'd bring in more melee combat, increase his HP a little bit, and reduce the amount of teleporting, and call it a day. But hey, that's me. I can see why some still love this, but I don't. Number 7, Mergo's Wet Nurse. While I would say I'm a more avid defender of this boss than the average Bloodbornian, I gotta say this fight did feel mildly anticlimactic as the penultimate battle of such an insane game. There are elements of this fight that are so close to perfection. For example, I do love the entire duplicating shadow section of the fight, but there is almost no interacting with it. The solution is to run in a circle in the arena. I wish you actually had to engage with it. I love the idea of all these blades being wielded by an invisibly cloaked figure, but again, as the slicing and dicing goes on, you can casually stroll behind her and knock her out. There isn't a lot of interactivity with Mergo, which is I think what most people's complaints are, despite it being one of the most important fights of the game to get right. The design, the music, the atmosphere, the ideas, they're all there, but some of the execution just falls flat with a fight that is somewhat poorly paced in a game full of aggressive insanity. Number 6, Nashandra. Nashandra isn't actually a bad fight at all. It's actually pretty freaking awesome in some ways, particularly Nashandra's visual design and the preceding cutscene and voice acting. The stage is set perfectly, and I don't even mind the curse orbs that sit around the arena, although they do poorly affect the pacing of the fight. The problem here is Nishandra is so unbelievably limited in her attack pool and speed, meaning once you deal with the curse orbs and get up close to her, you can hack away until the fight is over. It's just too easy for a final boss. Elana is a good example of how to do this mage melee hybrid in a more engaging and challenging way. And I think if they did a similar mechanical design to Elana, but with the visual look of Nishandra, we would have had a suitable final boss. It wouldn't have topped the best of the series by any means, but it would have been a huge improvement on the fight we got. Number 5. Fia's Champions. I've been advocating for some sort of tournament-style boss for a while. Some concept where perhaps you face a first boss in the lowest tier of a room and consecutively get harder foes as you travel up the pecking order. A boss gauntlet, but it's only one boss, I guess. But I did not want this. This is literally NPCs. For me, this is so disappointing because it's an idea that I can imagine being fleshed out in so many more interesting ways. One being not by spamming multiple NPCs per round, and then making them all pushovers somehow. I mean, this is a really bad fight, to be honest. It's not really any different from clearing out one of the castles in the open world. Of course, it would have been a lot of effort to put in 2 or 3 distinct bosses into a boss gauntlet for one side boss, but literally anything would have been better than a mass spam of NPCs. I would have even been more okay with reusing other bosses from the game, increasing in difficulty until the final foe. But instead we got whatever this is. Number 4, Champion's Gravetender. This is disappointing partially due to the price tag of the DLC and the fact that it's half of the bosses in Ashes of Ariandel. Yeah, that's borderline EA levels of WTF. Okay, it's not that far. FromSoft would never. But a lot is banking on the 2 bosses in a full price DLC to be really, really good, and this boss is just okay. The positives are the immaculate arena, the snowy setting, the gorgeous soundtrack, and the frantic pace of the second half of the fight. The bad is, well, everything else. An NPC with spammed wolves who also summons a bigger wolf before he's gone. I guess I get what they were going for in terms of character. He's like calling upon his large companion for assistance in a moment of panic. But who is this guy? Like, we have no connection to him or his wolf. No Artorias and Sif, I can tell you that much. And as much as the wolf is pretty cool looking, we have seen this before with a sword. So what makes this wolf stand out? He's really fast. Sonic, yeah, I gotta go fast. But when you have something as iconic as Sif in your history, why not manage to do something a little bit more ambitious with a wolf boss? Maybe he's armored, maybe he also has a weapon to pay homage to Sif, but it's a different weapon. But this is just kind of a basic fight, and it's one that is worse considering the missed opportunities and the DLC component. Before I get to my top 3, I want you guys to comment below video idea topics that you'd like me to cover, and it just might happen. This video only came around because of a comment, so maybe you can be like this guy. And it doesn't have to be rankings, it could be anything. Number 3, Dark Sun Gwendolyn. I always found this hidden boss to be relentlessly intriguing. He's holding up the illusion of the grandeur of Anorlando. He's son to Gwyn, and he's pissed. He's got an illusory hallway endlessly available to him with the power of magic at his fingertips, and he uses 3 attacks, one of which is a crossbow. This fight feels anti-interactive, as it mostly just consists of hiding and running, which I could be actually fine with if the attacks were even mildly interesting to dodge. These are some of the most boring attacks, and because there's only 3 of them, they get old fast. Honestly, all I'd really need for this fight to skyrocket off of this list entirely is a variety of attacks, some of which feeling more interactive than hiding in a corner of a hallway. This could be pyromancy, other types of magic, or summoning of enemies. Literally anything to keep it from being oh, sorry, I fell asleep because this fight can be so boring. Number 2, Dragon God. I mean, do I really need to explain this one? Like, actually? Okay. So obviously I wasn't a part of the initial release of Demon Souls, but I do know that the marketing prominently features this godlike dragon, also known as Dragon God, as like the primary foe of the game. It's obviously an iconic visual design, and everybody could see why the studio decided to push it in the marketing. The fight itself, though, is atrocious. It's a little mini puzzle fight with random one-shots. Like, there is no consideration to balance in this fight. I think the obvious solution to this, other than scrapping the whole thing and making an actual good boss, is to make this a phase 1 and have a phase 2 where there is some real combat and interaction with the dragon. A good example for how this could have worked could be found in God of War Ragnarok with the battle against Garm. It's big, epic, cinematic, and manageable. But obviously, we're at a further point with technology now than we were back then, so I understand that the game released like this. But it would have been really nice to see some mechanical tweaks in the remake. They had an opportunity here to fine-tune some of the aspects of the game. I guess I'm glad they allowed people to have the authentic experience from the original, but I mean, at least we got content, so can't complain too much. But number 1, the most disappointing boss for me in the entire Souls series is Pinwheel. You might be shocked to see Penny Boy here. I don't think many people had high hopes for him at all, as his reputation definitely precedes him. Chad, built at a solid 3 feet tall, unstoppable force of nature. Fun fact though, he was the inspiration for the new Evil Dead Rise film. If you've seen it, you know what I mean. Family sticks together. Just kidding. In all seriousness, the reason this was such a disappointment to me, and the biggest of the whole series, is that it's actually offensive. Like, nobody expects a boss who ate himself to demon status as a fat blob to be a good boss. And there is no salvaging the horrendous mechanics of a fight like Covetous Demon. Although I personally still have an entertainment value from it. But Pinwheel has a damn epic story. I suggest you watch a video explaining it. It's a tragic backstory. The path to him is arduous. You fight him in a gargantuan tomb, and he's got some interesting mechanics, like cloning that you'll never really see because he's dead so fast. Just triple this guy's HP for a better balanced fight, and he'd be instantly miles better. That's what's so frustrating. The baseline fix is just so easy. Of course, his mechanics could use some tuning generally, perhaps an extra move or so, but it's such an easy fix to make him a viable boss. Just literally turn one knob. But nope, we're relegated to the most pathetic boss for just about no reason. Sad face. I wrote a sad emoji in the script. That's how sad I am. Anyways, that's my list for the top 10 most disappointing bosses in Souls. Let me know your list down below. And again, let me know of any video ideas that you guys have that you'd like me to cover. Thank you for watching, and peace.